Hey guys, how's it going? We're back with another live hand I played recently, and we just want to show you that you can take multiple lines post-flop, and we want to show you the advantages and disadvantages when you have a lot of checks and bets in your game plan. So let's get started. We have the beautiful 5-6 and diamonds on the hijack.
Yeah, so raising it up, get two calls, and you said the guy on the button's kind of a reg, competent player,
Yes,
and the
correct.
big blind was just like a random.
Yeah, unknown.
Okay, so flop gets checked to us. I'd say this is not really the greatest flop. Like we're gonna have a lot of hands that miss this board. I guess we'll have like twos and threes, depending on what type of range you play. We're probably not opening them always necessarily, especially with a top player on the button. And then obviously we can't have any two pairs, although they can't really either. But I think it's like definitely in like the lower, I don't know, if you're gonna like rank boards, maybe the lower like 25-30% of boards as far as
Yeah, really,
being
really
good for our
bad board
range.
for our range.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because all the Broadway is bricked, so we have a bunch of airs, so you definitely don't want to see that this board all that often. So you want to
Mm-hmm.
have more check calls, more check raises, and only a small portion of bets, especially hands that need a lot of protection. We want to value bet here, so eights, nines, and of course some hands with nice draws or backdoor draws. So here we have the nut gut shot and the backdoor flush draw.
Mm-hmm.
And you always want to watch out for this, that you can barrel a lot of turn cards. So for example, when you have a hand like King, Queen, and Hearts, you can see bet a lot of turn cards. Or with 5, 6, and diamonds, we can see bet every diamond on the turn, and every 8 probably.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so like as you say, it's one of our this hand I think we can definitely put into our betting range. But I think again talking about mixing at the start of the video, this is a really good spot to think about starting to mix, right? Because
Yes.
you're going to want to have some hand, like you're going to want to have some gutters in your range when you check call or you check raise, right? It's nice to win four hits. People aren't necessarily going to be suspecting you have a hand like 5-6 when you say check raise the flop. So you definitely want to have some of those hands in your range and then balance it out with like, some of your sets, maybe some hands, even like aces. You can use as a check raise against aggressive players. And I think like betting hands like 2x and 3x are decent bets too as well, just to like fold out equity, just because they have like they have decent showdown, but it's nice to bet a hand like let's say ace two suited here, just to get guys to fold with like queen jack of clubs, stuff like that, right? Um,
And those hands are definitely too weak to check call.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're tough to check call. So I think either betting them, sometimes check raising, blocking sets, but
Yeah.
yeah. So you start by betting, which is definitely fine, and villain on the button calls, big blind calls. So
Need some
turn,
help, and
yeah.
there it is.
So obviously the nuts on the turn and gets checked to us now. What do you think about this card as far as our range goes?
Exactly. When you look at this board texture at first, you think, wow, we have the straight, so always betting. But you should also think about your range. And of course,
Mm,
this card is not very great for our hand, sorry, for our range, because villain and the big blind, both players can have a lot of straights. So we want to be fairly cautious and check a lot of hands. Also, when we bet hands like heart on the flop, we definitely want to slow down on the turn, check a lot. And that's the reason why I thought checking with some straights on the turn is also a good idea. Like I mentioned before, you don't want to always check or always bet. Try to mix it. And when you do this, you are way harder, way tougher to play.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, because I mean here, big blind could have like all the ace five off too, right? Which is kind
Yes.
of a big deal. He might be a loose player with all 5-6 off. He might have like 4-3 off even, maybe 7-4
Correct.
suited, 3-4 suited. So there's like a lot of combos that we just really don't have. So yeah, I think we're definitely going to want to be slowing down on this turn because I mean, if you think about, let's say we had pocket kings here, what are you doing here, right? You could bet
Yeah.
sometimes, maybe put out a small bet, right? But I wouldn't be comfortable like putting out a big bet here against two players with kings because like you get raised, you're done. If they
Yeah.
call, there's so many bad rivers. Like you really want to make you do want to think about what to do with the range and think about pot controlling with like a large portion of your range. So then you do want to put some of these nutted hands in our range. Also, the fact that we don't block any like sets and stuff too, it's pretty nice here.
Yeah, I agree
So
100%.
you go for the check, which is pretty sweet for sure. Now he bets little over 50% or so, 55% I think,
Yeah,
and
fairly
big blind
standard.
calls. back on us. So now I think probably going to be going for the raise here almost always. Oh, I mean, you could definitely continue the slow play at some frequency. Probably better with like hearts, right? Just so you have a little bit more protection. So
Here and definitely you sometimes get it in against ace 5, and this is obviously the dream spot.
Yeah, or like sets people can overplays. So
yep,
go for the check raise, and yeah, I mean it's good sizing with the nuts. Yeah, you don't want to go necessarily too small, but you don't want to go so big that you kind of force them off hands, like maybe ace 7 or I don't know, like ace 4 diamond stuff like that. You obviously want those hands to continue. So
yeah, I think just raise to a solid amount where you have fold equity, because so often you see that people raise to something like 160, 170, but you should understand that when you raise so small, both players get the correct odds to call their flush draws, so they make money by calling those hands and they never make a mistake. And of course, they also have a lot of implies when they have a set. So yeah, always try to force them to make some mistakes and use a proper sizing. Also, think about your bluffs. Would you check raise bluff to 170? Probably not, right? So everyone knows you're fairly value heavy and you don't want to be this player that is always only check raising for value on the turn. So make sure you have some bluffs and size properly, size big enough that this could be a bluff. If it's a turn or river, this will make no difference. You should always be capable of bluffing.
for sure. I mean, it's interesting here to think about bluffs if we did want to have some. I think this is a spot where we don't like really need too many, but
yeah,
maybe some hands like 4-6 suited I think could work well, like blocking sets and straights. 7-5 suited, although I think that has enough showdown where I'd be more inclined just to be check calling and drawing to it. But I think hands which like block, obviously hands which block straights and potential sets is the ones you want to be using that have additional equity. Maybe even a hand like 4x of hearts occasionally, just trying to get the fold equity right away in the turn, then having the outs.
Yeah, I mean, also like 5x, 6x hearts. Why not? Like King 5.
Yeah.
Queen 5 suited, definitely a candidate.
Yeah, and then let me some to add to that too is that if you do, let's say we have King 5 suited, we check raise turn. You want to be really careful on the river because it's a really shitty hand to use as a check raise jam river because you're blocking. You are blocking straights, but then you're also blocking their potential missed flush draws and also their potential like 5x that they called turn with maybe a hand like 5-4 suited that you're blocking that they're going to fold. So those hands, which when if you have the flush draw on the turn, you check raise. Be aware on the river.
Yeah, exactly. And you definitely want to have a read that your opponent is a solid player and can make some strong laydowns. Otherwise, I would say this is a spot where you can definitely be a little bit more value heavy. No problem at all.
Yeah, for sure. So big blind gets out of the way. Button calls. Interesting river
river's
now.
interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. What do you think about this card?
I mean, I think when we check raise turn, I mean, our range is so strong when we check raise turn that we're definitely going to already have a lot of made straights in our range. We might have some sets. Although,
yes.
The thing is with our sets, even with sets on the turn, given they can have so many straights, I'd be fairly reluctant to check raise those too, just because getting jammed on is so sick and we could be drawn to a boat if we just check call and then allow them to bluff. So I think we can have some sets, but we definitely have like a lot of 5x in our range. But we can also be, these guys don't necessarily know that. They might perceive us to have sets. They might perceive us to the odd time to have like overpairs. So I think on this river, if we jam, it's kind of hard to represent a bluff for sure, because if we had something like 5x, it just got there. If we have some type of 2 pair, we're checking. So I think it's definitely going to be tough to get paid too often if we jam. We're basically hoping he has a set, which he definitely could, but
yeah, it's really hard when you think about his perceived range. So which strong hands can he have? Because he just called flop and bet called turn. And I think when he has sevens, deuces, and threes, he's a little bit more inclined to raise flop than to call. So maybe give him, I don't know, 6 combos overall or something like this, right? Max that he that he just calls flop with. And that's about it, right? And I think he can have all the draws, like all the draws. And that's why I decided to check river. I think when he has more sets, or he can have all the sets, right? The board is drier, and I know this opponent that he's capable of slow playing more often, then I don't mind value shoving, because he is never value shoving himself. Live players are always scared when the board has a one card straight. So yeah, then I don't mind. But here it's really hard for him to have a lot of sets, and that's the reason why I decided to check and was hoping that he turns a flush draw into a bluff.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely like it. As we talked about, mixing it up, not always doing it, but make sure you definitely
Yeah,
mix it in. And I think if I was playing against a random, or like someone I know who's pretty loose passive, I much prefer just shoving because they're not going to be turning enough hands into bluffs. If they have them, they're
absolutely.
just going to be like, nah, well, I can't win with this hand, but I'm not going to try to put in $600 here, whatever that is, like 150 big blinds, right? Even though the pot's big, a lot of players aren't willing to put those bluffs in. So definitely,
Yeah, really crucial.
knowing your player is a good spot here. And he
And he
shoves,
goes for it. Yeah.
and you call.
And yeah, he immediately tables
Yeah,
a6 for the river second pair. And yeah, we scoop a nice pot.
yeah, nice hand for sure. I mean, what do you think about his bluff there on the river?
Yeah, I don't think I fold too many better hands, to be honest. I mean, I fold some flush draws, but he has a pair of sixes, so he wins against those hands. And yeah, given his line, I don't think I'm capable of folding pocket threes or sevens if I have those hands. And if I don't have those hands, I have 5x, so he can just go to showdown with a6.
Yeah, for sure. I think. I mean, he blocks ace five and 6-5 suited, but I think here he has a bit of showdown. I think when you have some possibility of showing down against like Jack 10 of hearts, King Queen of hearts, maybe you have like 4x of hearts sometimes, right? Without a
Yeah,
straight, I think he should really just be taking that showdown because when you think about your line, I don't think many players in these games are like check raise and turn without like at least a set, right?
correct.
So you're just
Absolutely.
going to have it way too often. And again, if you did check raise turn with some type of draw, he's actually ahead of those decent amount here, right? So the chance of you having something like pocket queens here, I just don't really see it too often. So he's just really kind of bluffing into a pretty nutted range, and yeah, I mean that's why checking the river is obviously amazing, right? You get these players to make some of these plays where they think they can't win, and obviously if you shove river, he's never calling, right? So for
Yeah, and
sure.
also I think why this works so good is super often they use the wrong perceived range. So they put you on a wrong range.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, sometimes they think you can play kings or queens or jacks this way, or you would fold all those heads all the time. And this is just wrong, right? And that's the reason why they make those plays.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's why here the check is definitely a little bit more profitable than the bet.
For sure. Yeah, nice hand, and see you guys next time.
Yeah, see ya. Bye bye.